The morning light filtered softly through the kitchen window, casting a warm glow on the faded floral curtains that my mother had hung years ago. I stood at the counter, listening to the gentle hum of the kettle as it sputtered and clicked, the only sound breaking the stillness of the early hour. The faint scent of brewing coffee filled the room, wrapping around me like a familiar embrace. It was a routine I cherished, one that anchored my day. I poured myself a cup, letting the steam curl around my fingers while I gazed out at the street. The neighborhood was waking up slowly, each house a testament to its occupants' lives. Mrs. Petrovich next door was already tending to her garden, her bright yellow gloves a stark contrast against the rich brown of the earth. I could hear her humming a tune, a melody both sweet and nostalgic. It reminded me of summer days spent playing on the grass, laughter ringing in the air, a time when worries felt like distant clouds. As I took my first sip of coffee, I felt the warmth spread through me, chasing away the remnants of sleep. My phone buzzed on the counter, pulling me back to the present. It was a message from Alex, my son. "Morning, Mom. Just wanted to let you know I'm heading to the gym before class. Love you." A smile crept onto my face. Every morning, without fail, he sent me a message. Even at 20, he still found time to check in. I remembered the little boy who used to leave for school with his backpack almost as big as him, the boy who would run back to give me one last hug before disappearing down the street. I took another sip and felt a wave of gratitude wash over me. My life, despite its imperfections, was filled with warmth. I had a job at the local bookstore, a place where the smell of old paper and ink danced in the air. The shop was my sanctuary, filled with stories that transported me to other worlds, and I often lost track of time among the shelves. My coworkers, Anna and Mark, felt like family. We shared coffee breaks filled with laughter and snippets of our lives, the kind of bonds that made the ordinary feel extraordinary. The news played softly in the background, the radio crackling to life as I moved to tidy up the kitchen. Tensions continued to rise in Eastern Europe. Authorities urged citizens to remain calm. The anchor's voice was steady, but there was an undercurrent of worry. I had heard the murmurs, the hushed conversations, the way people glanced at each other when the topic of conflict arose. It felt like a distant storm cloud on the horizon, unsettling, yet somehow easy to ignore in the warmth of my morning. I finished my coffee and grabbed my bag, ready to head to work. The streets were still quiet, the occasional rumble of a passing car breaking the serene atmosphere. I exchanged nods with neighbors as I walked, their faces a mix of familiarity and routine. There was Mr. Ivanov, the retired teacher, who always stopped to chat about the weather, and the young couple across the street who had recently moved in. They were still learning the lay of the land, often looking lost but determined to find their place. Arriving at the bookstore, I was greeted by the comforting sight of shelves stacked high with books. The bell above the door jingled as I stepped inside, and the smell of coffee wafted from the small cafe nook in the corner. Anna was already behind the counter, her dark hair pulled back in a messy bun, a bright smile illuminating her face. "Morning. Ready for another day of literary adventures," she teased as she poured a fresh pot of coffee. I laughed, easing into the familiar rhythm of our banter. "Always. Though I think we might need to start charging admission for the caffeine fix." As we settled into the day, the conversations flowed easily. Customers drifted in and out, each bringing their own stories, their own lives woven into the fabric of the shop. I loved hearing about the books they were searching for, the recommendations that sparked joy or nostalgia. It was a world where I felt needed, where I could share my love for stories and escape, if only for a moment, into the pages of someone else's life. As the afternoon sun spilled through the windows, casting long shadows on the floor, my thoughts drifted back to Alex. I wondered what he was learning in school, what his dreams were. I had always encouraged him to chase them, to explore the world with an open heart. But there was a nagging worry that lingered. The world felt different lately, charged, uncertain. The radio continued to play softly in the background, snippets of news filtering through as I shelved books. Military exercises are reported near the border, and experts warn of escalating tensions. I tried to push it out of my mind, focusing instead on arranging the new arrivals. Later, as I closed up the store, the sun dipped low on the horizon, painting the sky in hues of orange and purple. I felt a sense of contentment wash over me, a fleeting moment where everything felt right. I walked home, the familiar path grounding me, the chirps of crickets beginning to fill the air as dusk settled in. When I stepped through the door, the scent of dinner wafted from the kitchen. "Hey, Mom. You're home early," Alex called from the living room, his voice filled with warmth. I found him sprawled on the couch, the glow of the television flickering against his face. "Just closing up a bit earlier today. How was your workout?" Intense, as usual. I think I might actually be getting stronger. He grinned, a twinkle in his eye that mirrored the boy I once knew. I moved to the kitchen, starting to prepare dinner while we chatted about his classes, his friends, and plans for the weekend. The world outside felt distant as we shared laughter and dreams, the sound of our voices wrapping around us like a comforting blanket. As I served dinner, I noticed the faintest tension in the air, the way Alex's brow furrowed when he mentioned a classmate's brother who had enlisted. It's just crazy, Mom. I mean, why would anyone want to join the military right now? I nodded, feeling a knot form in my stomach. I don't know, sweetheart. People have their reasons. The conversation drifted, but the weight of those words lingered in the air, a subtle reminder of the world beyond our little bubble. For now, though, I pushed it aside, choosing to focus on the warmth of our shared meal, the laughter, the love that filled our home. I wanted to hold on to this moment, to freeze time before the world outside inevitably intruded. Little did I know, the storm was closer than I realized, and soon everything would change. The aroma of freshly brewed coffee lingered in the air, mingling with the scent of old books that surrounded me in the quaint little bookstore. Yet, despite the familiar comforts, an unshakable weight pressed against my chest, making each breath feel heavier. The morning news buzzed in the background, a constant reminder of the world outside, but I found myself tuning it out, focusing instead on the warmth of the moment. A soft chime announced the arrival of a customer, pulling me back into the present. As I arranged the new arrivals on the shelves, I couldn't help but notice a change in the atmosphere. The usual chatter among customers felt muted, conversations held in hushed tones. Anna, usually so vibrant, had a faraway look in her eyes as she quietly stacked books beside me. Mark, who often shared his witty observations, seemed distracted, his brow furrowed as he stared out the window. I followed his gaze, but all I saw was the familiar street, now strangely still, the usual bustle of life replaced by an eerie calm. A siren pierced the silence, but this time it lasted longer than usual. My heart raced as I exchanged glances with Anna and Mark. We all knew the sound. It was just a test, they said. But the lingering wail felt ominous, a harsh reminder that the world was changing, and not for the better. I forced a smile as a customer approached, but it felt plastic, unable to mask the growing unease in my stomach. "Can I help you find something?" I asked, my voice betraying a tremor I didn't intend to reveal. The woman in front of me glanced around, her eyes darting nervously, and shook her head before quickly leaving the store. I watched her go, feeling a knot tighten in my stomach. Outside, the street seemed emptier than usual. I noticed a group of children drawing on the pavement, their chalky images vibrant and innocent, except for one small figure, a crude outline of a tank, drawn with a certain seriousness. A chill ran through me as I approached them, hoping to distract myself. "That's a nice drawing," I said, trying to sound encouraging. The little boy looked up at me, his expression oddly solemn. "We need to be ready, just in case." His words hung between us, heavy with implications I didn't want to acknowledge. As I returned inside, I overheard a whispered conversation between two elderly women at the corner of the store. They leaned in close, their voices barely audible. "Did you hear about the neighbor?" Just vanished without a word. The words sent a shiver down my spine. I had seen Mr. Ivanov just last week, tending to his garden. Had something happened? I wanted to ask, but the knot in my stomach tightened further, leaving me speechless. The day dragged on, each hour stretching like taffy, the sun slipping lower in the sky. I tried to focus on my tasks, organizing the shelves, but my hands trembled slightly as I picked up a particularly heavy book. I set it down, my mind racing with thoughts I couldn't quiet. Every creak of the floorboards beneath my feet felt amplified, as if the very building was aware of the tension in the air. A loud noise echoed from outside, a distant rumble that made everyone pause. Mark looked up, his eyes wide, and for a moment, we all shared a collective breath, the unspoken fear hanging above us like a storm cloud ready to burst. But then, as if on cue, the chatter resumed, forced laughter filling the gaps. I joined in, though it felt hollow, each laugh a desperate attempt to cling to normalcy while the world outside shifted beneath us. When the shop finally closed, I stepped outside, the evening air cool against my skin. I walked home, the streets quieter than usual, the usual sounds of laughter and music replaced by a tense silence. My mind raced with thoughts of Alex, the unshakable worry creeping back in. I pulled out my phone to check for messages, my heart sinking as I found none. As I reached our building, I noticed a figure standing by the entrance. It was Alex, his expression serious as he leaned against the wall, his phone in hand. I felt a rush of relief at the sight of him, but it was quickly overshadowed by the tension radiating from him. "Hey, Mom," he said, forcing a smile that didn't quite reach his eyes. "Just got back from hanging out with some friends." I smiled back, but the unease in my stomach returned, the weight of unsaid words pressing down on both of us. "Everything okay?" I asked, my voice softer than I intended. "Yeah, just, things are weird out there," he replied, glancing down the street as if expecting someone to appear. "People are talking about some big decisions coming up." His words hung in the air, heavy with meaning. I nodded, trying to keep the conversation light, but the shadows of his words loomed large. We walked inside, the familiar warmth of our home wrapping around us, yet I could feel the chill lingering just below the surface. As we settled into the evening, the sounds of the news filtered through the living room, a familiar backdrop now tainted with foreboding. I watched Alex as he scrolled through his phone, his brow furrowed in concentration. The laughter and warmth of our earlier conversations felt like a distant memory, replaced by an undercurrent of dread that neither of us wanted to acknowledge. I tried to focus on the joy of having him home, but the air felt charged, each moment heavy with the knowledge that something was changing. The walls of our home, once a sanctuary, now felt like they were closing in, the comforting routine of our lives slipping away as the world outside continued its unsettling transformation. The day began like any other, the soft light of dawn filtering through the kitchen window, illuminating the familiar clutter of my life. I brewed my coffee, inhaling the rich aroma that had always wrapped me in comfort. Alex had messaged me good morning, his words a gentle reminder of our bond, filled with the lightness of our daily routine. Yet, a gnawing sensation clung to the back of my mind, something I couldn't quite shake off. As I walked to the bookstore that day, the usual chatter of neighbors felt muted, the air heavy with a tension that was becoming increasingly hard to ignore. The streets, once buzzing with the sound of laughter and life, now echoed with hushed voices discussing the latest news, their faces drawn and serious. I noticed a group of men standing outside the cafe, their expressions grim as they exchanged worried glances. My heart raced, a sense of foreboding settling over me like a thick fog. When I arrived at the bookstore, I found Anna and Mark huddled together, their voices barely above a whisper. I approached them, trying to catch snippets of their conversation. "Did you hear?" "It was right down the street," Anna said, her voice trembling slightly. Mark nodded, his eyes wide with disbelief. I felt a chill run down my spine. Something was off. "Hey, what's going on?" I asked, forcing a calmness into my voice that I didn't feel. "Just news," Mark replied, avoiding my gaze. "A house exploded. No one knows why." I felt the ground shift beneath me, the words sinking into my mind like stones. I tried to brush it off, to pretend it didn't affect me. But the thought of something so violent, so close, wrapped tightly around my chest. I went about my day, but the unease lingered, a shadow that darkened every corner of the store. As the afternoon wore on, I was shelving books when a loud bang shattered the stillness of the shop. It reverberated through the walls, rattling the shelves and sending a cascade of dust into the air. My heart raced as I exchanged panicked glances with Anna and Mark. The sound was unmistakable, an explosion. "Stay here," I said, my voice steadier than I felt. I rushed to the front door, pushing it open just as sirens wailed in the distance, their shrieks cutting through the air. The world outside seemed to have transformed, the vibrant colors of the day now muted, a haze of uncertainty settling over everything. I stepped outside, the ground shaking slightly beneath my feet. A crowd had gathered, their faces a mixture of shock and fear. I followed their gaze, and my breath caught in my throat. The house just 2 doors down from mine was engulfed in flames, the smoke billowing into the air like dark clouds of despair. Firefighters rushed in, their shouts mingling with the crackling of flames, the scene unfolding like a nightmare I couldn't wake from. "Mom." Alex's voice cut through the chaos, pulling me back to reality. I turned to see him running towards me, his face pale, eyes wide with fear. "What's happening? Is everyone okay?" I couldn't answer. My mind raced as I grasped for the words to reassure him, but nothing came. Panic settled in my chest, tightening its grip with every passing second. I don't know," I finally managed to say, my voice barely above a whisper. The realization hit me like a punch to the gut. This wasn't just a distant threat anymore. It had breached the walls of my life, tearing through the fabric of our everyday existence. I felt the tears prick at the corners of my eyes, but I forced them back. I needed to be strong for Alex, to show him that we could face this together. "Let's get inside," I said, my voice trembling as I maneuvered through the crowd, pulling him with me. The familiar safety of our home felt like a distant memory, a fragile shell that could shatter at any moment. Once inside, I closed the door, leaning against it as though it could shield us from the chaos outside. The room felt stifling, the air thick with anxiety. I could hear the distant sirens, the muffled shouts of firefighters, the crackling of flames, all blending into a cacophony of fear. "Mom, what if it's us next?" Alex's voice was small, trembling with uncertainty. His question hung in the air, heavy and suffocating. I turned to him, my heart breaking at the sight of his fear. "It won't be," I insisted, but even I wasn't sure if I believed the words. The world had shifted irrevocably, and I could feel the cracks beginning to form in the walls of my carefully constructed reality. We stood there in silence, the weight of unspoken fears pressing down on us, our home suddenly feeling like a fragile sanctuary amidst a storm. I could see the reflection of the flames dancing in his eyes, a flicker of dread that mirrored my own. In that moment, I realized that no amount of coffee or morning messages could shield us from the truth. Our lives were forever altered. The warmth of our routine, the comfort of our conversations, all of it could be swept away in an instant. I took a deep breath, trying to steady myself, but I felt the cracks widening, the illusion of normalcy shattered beyond repair. The sound of another explosion echoed in the distance, and I closed my eyes, clinging to the hope that we could weather this storm together. But deep down, I knew the road ahead would be fraught with choices I never wanted to make, decisions that would reshape our lives in ways I couldn't yet comprehend. The silence in my home felt like a suffocating blanket, heavy and unyielding. I stood in the kitchen, staring at the half-eaten meal I had prepared, the aroma of burnt food mingling with the scent of fear that had taken root in every corner of my being. I could hardly remember the last time I had truly tasted a meal, let alone enjoyed it. Each bite now felt like an obligation rather than a comfort, a reminder of how easily everything could slip away. Alex's last message echoed in my mind, a cruel twist of fate that shattered any semblance of normalcy I had clutched to. "I enlisted, Mom. I'm going to serve." The words were like a physical blow, reverberating through my thoughts, leaving me breathless. How could he do this? How could he make such a decision without even speaking to me first? My heart raced with a mix of anger and despair, each beat a reminder of the love I felt for my son, now tangled in fear for his safety. I paced the kitchen, my hands gripping the edges of the counter, the cool surface grounding me momentarily. Memories flashed before my eyes. Alex as a child, full of laughter and dreams, the way he'd look up at me with those bright, curious eyes. The boy who shared his hopes and fears with me, now lost in a world of uncertainty and conflict. I felt a pang of guilt for not recognizing the signs, for not seeing that this was coming. My mind raced with questions. Should I reach out to him again? Should I confront him about his choice? I imagined his voice, calm and resolute, perhaps dismissing my concerns as naive. "Mom, this is my duty. I need to do this." The thought twisted my stomach into knots, each possibility leading to another, a labyrinth of emotions I couldn't navigate. As dusk settled outside, shadows crept into the corners of the room, amplifying my sense of isolation. I could hear the muffled voices of my neighbors discussing the latest news, their words heavy with anxiety. I wanted to reach out, to talk to someone, to cry out my fears, but the thought of vulnerability paralyzed me. What if they judged me? What if they blamed me for Alex's decision? In a world gone mad, finding solace felt impossible. The phone buzzed on the counter, and I hesitated before picking it up. It was a message from Anna, asking if I was okay. I stared at the screen, my thumb hovering over the reply button. Should I tell her the truth? Should I share the weight of this terrible knowledge? I wanted to scream, to let someone into the chaos of my heart, but the fear of burdening her held me back. Instead, I closed the message and let the phone slip back onto the counter, the silence settling once more. I walked to the window, peering out into the street where shadows danced under the flickering streetlights. The world outside felt foreign, unrecognizable. I thought of Alex, of the boy who used to ride his bike down that very street. carefree and oblivious to the dangers lurking beyond our neighborhood. Now, he was out there, possibly facing horrors I couldn't even begin to fathom. The thought made my chest tighten, and I pressed my forehead against the cool glass, wishing I could shield him from the reality of war. A noise startled me, a distant explosion that shook the ground beneath my feet. My heart raced, the sound a grim reminder that the chaos was creeping closer. I felt the urge to grab Alex, to pull him back into the safety of our home. But the truth was I couldn't even protect myself. Panic surged through me, and I sank onto the floor, my back against the cool tiles, drawing my knees to my chest. Tears streamed down my face, hot and unwelcome, as I grappled with the conflicting emotions tearing me apart. What kind of mother was I? How could I let him go into a situation I knew was fraught with danger? I imagined the worst. Alex in a foreign land, terrified and alone, facing the brutality of war without me by his side. The thought was unbearable, and I pressed my palms against my eyes, trying to block out the images that flooded my mind. I felt a deep longing for the days when life felt simple, when my biggest worry was whether Alex would finish his homework or what to make for dinner. Now, I was faced with a choice that could fracture our relationship forever. Should I confront him about his decision, or should I support him, even if it meant risking our bond? The dilemma weighed heavily on me, an anchor pulling me deeper into despair. I thought of other parents, of those who had faced similar choices. How did they cope? Did they watch their children leave with a heavy heart, filled with pride or dread? I felt so isolated, trapped in my own turmoil, surrounded by a world that seemed to be unraveling. The shadows lengthened, and I was left alone with my thoughts, the weight of my love for Alex becoming a burden I could no longer carry. I reached for my phone again, hesitating as I thought about calling him. What would I say? Would it be filled with anger or fear? Or would I simply tell him how much I loved him and how scared I was? In that moment, I knew I was standing at a precipice, my heart racing with the uncertainty of what lay ahead. The choices I made from here on out would shape not just my future, but Alex's as well. I closed my eyes, feeling the tears fall freely now. The floodgates opened as I surrendered to the chaos within. I was a mother, caught in the storm of war, desperately trying to hold on to the fragments of my son, my love, and the life we once knew. The sound of sirens wailed in the distance, a haunting reminder of the chaos unfolding just beyond my doorstep. I stood in the kitchen, the coffee pot cold and abandoned, the comforting aroma replaced by a suffocating tension. My hands trembled as I clutched my phone, staring at the last message from Alex. "I'll make you proud, Mom." The words echoed in my mind, mixing with the fear that twisted my stomach into knots. How could he think that? What did pride even mean anymore, in a world where explosions punctuated the air like tragic punctuation marks? I felt a surge of anger bubbling beneath my fear. Pride was a luxury I could no longer afford. I could hear the conversations of Anna and Mark, their voices a distant murmur as they discussed the news, the escalating conflict, the men being drafted. Each word felt like a stab to my heart. I glanced at the clock, the hands moving slowly, taunting me with their indifference. I needed to do something. I couldn't just stand by, paralyzed by fear. I could feel the weight of inaction pressing down on me. And in that moment, I made a choice. I would not let Alex go without a fight, without knowing that he had my support, my love, and my unwavering belief in him. I grabbed my coat, the fabric rough against my skin, and stepped out into the chaos of the street. Outside, the air was electric with tension. People rushed past me, their faces etched with worry, but I was on a mission. I needed to find him, to tell him that I understood, that I wanted to support his decision, even if it meant losing him in ways I couldn't yet comprehend. I pulled up the messaging app, my fingers shaking as I typed. "I'm coming to see you. We need to talk." I hit send, my heart racing with each passing moment. Moments later, my phone vibrated in my pocket. Alex's response came through almost immediately. "Mom, please don't. It's not safe." His words were a plea, but they only fueled my determination. I couldn't let fear dictate my life or Alex's choices. I needed to show him that I was there for him, no matter what. As I walked through the streets, I could see the remnants of yesterday's chaos. Shattered glass, the smell of smoke still lingering in the air. Each step felt heavy, the world around me a blur as I focused solely on my destination. I needed to reach him, to tell him that I believed in him, that he was more than just a soldier. He was my son. Suddenly, I stopped in front of a storefront, its windows cracked and boarded up. Inside, I could see remnants of lives interrupted, shelves overturned, items scattered. I felt a pang of loss for the normalcy that used to fill these streets. It was a stark reminder of what was at stake. I took a deep breath, the air thick with the scent of burnt wood and something metallic, and pressed on. When I reached the small gathering place where Alex had said he would be, my heart sank. A crowd was gathered, some faces familiar, others strangers, all marked by the same anxiety that clung to me like a shadow. I pushed through the throng, my heart racing with every step. Finally, I spotted him, standing at the edge of the group, his uniform stark against the dull backdrop of the day. The moment our eyes met, a wave of emotion washed over me. His face was lined with worry, and for a fleeting second, I saw the boy he used to be, the one who would run to me with scraped knees and a bright smile. I wanted to run to him, to wrap him in my arms, but instead, I felt rooted in place, the weight of the world pressing down on me. "Mom," he called out, his voice cutting through the noise. I forced my legs to move, breaking through the barrier of people until I stood before him, breathless and trembling. "Alex," I managed to say, my voice barely above a whisper. He stepped closer, concern etched across his brow. "You shouldn't be here. It's dangerous." "I had to come," I said, my voice stronger now, fueled by the urgency of the moment. "I needed you to know that I'm here for you. I support you, no matter what." His expression softened for an instant, a flicker of gratitude before it faded into something heavier. "Mom, I can't let you get hurt. You need to go home. This isn't a place for you." I shook my head, refusing to back down. "I can't just sit at home, waiting for news. I need to know you're okay. I need to know you're making the right choice for yourself." The noise around us faded, and for a moment, it felt like we were the only two people in the world. I took a deep breath, the air thick with unspoken fears and unshed tears. "I love you, Alex. I don't want to lose you. But I cannot let fear control my heart. I want you to fight for what you believe in, even if it scares me." Tears glistened in his eyes as he stepped back, the weight of my words settling between us. "You don't understand what I'm about to face. What if I don't come back?" The question hung in the air, heavy and suffocating. I took a step closer, feeling the warmth of his presence. "Then I want you to know that you are loved, that you are more than just a soldier. You are my son, and that will never change." In that moment, I saw him wrestle with his emotions, the conflict of duty and love playing out across his face. I reached out, taking his hands in mine, grounding him in the chaos surrounding us. "Promise me you'll come back. Promise me you'll fight to return to us." He squeezed my hands, his grip firm yet trembling. "I promise, Mom." As we stood there, an explosion echoed in the distance, shaking the ground beneath us. I flinched, instinctively pulling away, but Alex held tighter, anchoring me in that moment. I knew then that this was my choice, to embrace the uncertainty, to stand beside him even in the face of fear. With a final squeeze, he turned, moving back toward the group, leaving me standing there. The space between us felt like an abyss, a door closing with a finality that echoed in my heart. As he disappeared into the throng, I felt the weight of my choice settle in. I had let him go, but I had also given him something powerful, a connection, a promise, a reminder that he was loved. I stood there, the chaos swirling around me, the weight of my decision heavy on my shoulders. I had chosen to support him, to confront my fears, and in doing so, I realized I had also opened a door within myself, one that led to acceptance, to love, and to the painful beauty of letting go. A few weeks later, the world outside my window remained a canvas of chaos, but inside, I found a strange sense of stillness. The days blurred together, marked only by the ticking of the clock and the soft rustle of pages in the bookstore. I often caught myself staring at the empty chair across from me, the spot where I imagined Alex sitting, sharing stories that now felt like distant echoes. The mornings had become quieter. I would brew my coffee, the rich aroma filling the air, but I no longer felt the warmth of the sun on my face as I did before. Instead, I would sit at the kitchen table, my hands wrapped around the mug, remembering the weight of his last message. "I'll make you proud, Mom." Those words haunted me, a bittersweet reminder of the depth of his commitment and of my own fears. I started to keep a journal, pouring my thoughts onto the pages. The ink flowed freely, capturing my worries, my hopes, and my memories of Alex. Each entry began with the date, a ritual that grounded me, but soon morphed into a release. I wrote about the day he enlisted, the look in his eyes when he told me, the way my heart shattered even as I tried to be strong. I wrote about the moments we shared, the laughter, the late-night talks, the dreams he had for the future, dreams that now felt so fragile. One afternoon, I stumbled upon a photo of us at the beach, the sun setting behind us, casting a warm glow over our faces. I felt an overwhelming surge of emotion as I traced the outline of his smile. I decided to keep it close, tucking it into the pages of my journal, a secret reminder of the boy he was, the boy I still believed he could be. Yet, there were days when the weight of reality bore down on me. I would glance at the television, images of conflict flashing across the screen, and my heart would race. I had learned to mute the noise, but the images seeped into my mind, intertwining with memories of Alex. I imagined him, strong and resolute, yet I couldn't shake the fear of what awaited him. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, I found myself standing in the middle of the living room, staring at his empty coat hanging by the door. It was a symbol of his absence, a reminder of the life that once felt safe. I reached for it, fingers grazing the fabric, and for a moment, I was tempted to bury my face in it, to inhale the remnants of him. But I hesitated, feeling the weight of the moment. Instead, I chose to leave it there, a silent testament to the journey we both were on, a reminder that he still belonged to this space, even if he wasn't physically here. I began to volunteer at a local community center, connecting with other families who shared similar fears and hopes. We would gather, sharing stories that echoed through the room, each tale a thread weaving us together. It was a small act, but it filled a void. I learned the power of community, of shared resilience. We laughed, cried, and held each other up, creating a tapestry of support that felt almost tangible. As I walked home after one of our gatherings, I noticed a young boy playing with a toy soldier, his laughter ringing through the air. It struck me then, the innocence of childhood amidst the backdrop of turmoil. I realized that while the world outside was fraught with conflict, love and hope still thrived in the smallest moments. The weeks turned into months, and I found a rhythm in the chaos. I learned to embrace the uncertainty, to cherish the quiet moments of connection, whether it was over a cup of coffee or in the embrace of a friend. My heart still carried the weight of fear, but it was now accompanied by a profound sense of love, love for Alex, love for those around me, and an unwavering belief in our shared humanity. One morning, as I stood by the window, watching the world wake up, I felt a sense of peace wash over me. The sun broke through the clouds, casting a warm glow over the streets below. I took a deep breath, letting the light fill me. In that moment, I understood that while I could not shield Alex from the world, I could choose to face it with courage. I made a promise to myself then to live fully, to honor his journey by embracing my own. I would continue to write, to connect, and to hold on to hope. In the quiet of that morning, I realized that love transcends even the darkest of times. It binds us together, a thread weaving through the fabric of our lives, reminding us that we are never truly alone. As I sipped my coffee, I thought of Alex, of the journey we both were on. The world outside may be chaotic, but within me, there was a quiet transformation, a testament to resilience, to love, and to the enduring strength of the human spirit. If this story touched you in any way, consider subscribing. Stories like this need to be told and heard.